Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. So once again, thank you for everybody who's joined. My name is Robert. I am a director of process discovery here at Accelirate. And on the line, we also have Justin Keefe and Adi Kamat, who help head the process and task mining initiatives that we do here at Accelirate. So we're going to be going over what really that task mining is, defining it, and how it can really be used in the proper use cases. As well as how it kind of correlates with process mining as well. So I'm going to hand this over to Justin, who is the head of our process mining initiative. You may have remembered him if you were on the other webinars, as he's been helping lead with me some of the process mining, not just the process mining initiative, but also the documentation and methodology. So I'm going to pass it over to him. We can go ahead and get started.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm the head of process mining capabilities at Accelirate. I will be relating process mining to task mining, but first to give us a little understanding on task mining and what it is, I will pass it off to Aditya Kamat.
Thank you for that introduction, Justin. So let's get right into it. What is task mining? Essentially, all business processes are really made up of two things: all the actions taken by the people involved and all of the data moving through the systems involved. This leads us to the two major sources of data. Number one, this is business data. This is data that's buried in operational systems as time-stamped event logs. This data reveals every step and deviation that makes up a business process based on what happened and when. For example, when a purchase order was created, when a purchase order was approved, when an order was fulfilled, or even when an order was dispatched. The other source of data is user interaction data. This is everything that people do in between the business data logs to make it actually happen. For example, filling out the purchase order, checking if the amounts are correct, matching receipts to invoices, or even doing accounting research. Task mining is the technology that allows businesses to capture the user interaction data so they can analyze how their people are getting work done and understand how they can do it even better. By combining task mining with process mining, businesses can gain a fuller picture of how their business works, not only at a process level, but also at an employee level. We can look at process mining as the business data and task mining as the user interaction data. The interaction between the two allows us to discover what happens during the execution or waiting time of a business activity and what each employee does. So task mining relies on three major things. The first one is a task recorder. In order to collect user interaction data, the user interactions have to be recorded. To do so, an agent is installed on each employee's computer. The recording agent collects clicks, scrolls, and user actions, along with their timestamps and screenshots. All of these interactions are then pushed through to the OCR engine. The second backbone of task mining would be the OCR engine. This step contextualizes all the recorded data. Using the engine, words, numbers, and additional text from a user screen are collected to contextualize what they are doing. All user interaction data recognized during the recording is translated into structured contextual information relating to the user's different tasks. Finally, natural language processing and AI technology is leveraged to automatically understand and sort each action by topic and cluster these actions into activities. For example, creation of a purchase order or accounting reconciliation. Finally, after gathering the data and identifying the use cases, the user IDs and case IDs, task mining can form the complete picture with user interactions and business data in operational systems, giving you a complete view of your entire business process. What are the benefits of task mining? Number one, resource productivity. You can see how productive each user is and how much time each user spends on different applications and websites, allowing you to learn which applications on websites are most used and which users are most productive. Task productivity, ability to deep dive into the details of every task in the process to see which tasks have the most productive users and which tasks can be worked on in parallel. You can consolidate duplicate or out-of-date systems to understand if systems are actually helping employees at their job. You can benchmark work across divisions, compare outcomes, and establish best practices across divisions. Resource reallocation, choose the best performers for specific tasks, eliminate parallel task execution, and resolve any resource-related problems. You have the ability to discover manual workarounds that people use while performing certain activities. You can invest in high-value work, such as salespeople doing research. This is work that cannot be automated. And finally, and the most important, you can identify candidates for automation. You know where tools like RPA can be effective, use insights on performance, productivity, and frequency to design the best automation strategy. You can also automate frequent parts of the process that are repetitive or unproductive. Finally, an example of a typical task mining team would consist of an admin and a user. The admin would use an admin portal to configure the task mining project and assign the individual users who will participate in recordings. The admin continues to monitor the status and metrics of recordings for each user until an acceptable volume has been reached. The admin would then upload the process recording information to the OCR and NLP engine to generate the workflows based on the recordings. The user would receive an invitation from the admin to download the recorder. Once the user downloads and installs the recorder, the user can run the recorder in the background and continue performing their day-to-day activities. The user will also have the ability to pause or restart recording of process steps in case other unrelated tasks interrupt the main processes to be recorded. The users will also have an option to review and edit steps recorded by the recorder before they are processed and sent to the local data store. Up next, I would like to hand it over to Justin to speak about the relationship between task mining and process mining.
Hello, everyone. So process mining and task mining are very similar and they work very well together, but they also have a lot of main differences between the two. That's why we're talking about them right now. So first, before I get into those similarities and differences, I'm going to break down, give a quick recap of what is process mining from a very high level, so people who weren't on our past webinars can have a little understanding going forward. So what process mining is process mining can extract knowledge from event logs found commonly in information systems used today. So nowadays, businesses, companies, they have these huge processes that could span multiple departments, that could touch several different information systems, and there's tons of data out there. So with process mining, what you do is you take all that data from the process being ran, and then you combine it and put it into a process mining software like UiPath's Process Mining or Celonis, and they use specialized process analysis algorithms to analyze your process and to give you insights and various metrics and things about your process. So it takes all that event log data from your different systems and combines them and contextualizes them into one place. And what process mining can do it can create new ways where you can do some process discovery, you can monitor your process, and you can even improve your process as a whole. These event logs, just to give you a little example, these event logs have a case ID, which is an instance of a process being run. You have a timestamp of when that event log occurred, which helps you create a flow of how your process goes overall, and then an activity. And an activity is one of the main ways that process mining and task mining come together, because that activity is essentially a task. So what you're mining is those different tasks within a process. So that's just a quick little recap of what process mining is. Can you change the slide, Eddie? Okay, so the main differences between process mining and task mining are the scope. So for example, down here at the bottom, we have an example of a process model. So in this process model, what a process model really is it's the ideal situation, the ideal way the process would run. So down at the bottom, we have a process model based off of if you're hungry. So the first step is, you detected you're hungry. Then you go and then you check the fridge. So then you either have the decision, is the fridge empty or is the fridge full? So therefore, I either have to order food or I have to prepare food. And then I eat, and then the hunger is satisfied. So process mining as a whole would focus on improving the whole process as a whole, from hunger detected to hunger satisfied. But you see, with task mining, what we'd focus on more is one step of the process. So that's what makes a difference. So with task mining, we look at, let's say, the prepare food. That's where we'd look at. We look at one little step and see how we could improve that one step. Like, for example, let's say you're making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and you were using, a fork to spread your peanut butter. That would be something we could say, oh, hey, you should use a knife instead. This is obviously like a very simplified example of it, but that's how it worked. It worked on an individual task for task mining or an individual step, as opposed to process mining would look at your process as a whole. So that goes into the approach also. So the approach or Eddie, can you go back to the slide? So the approach for task mining is to look at the employee interaction data. So how is that employee doing that step of the activity? How are you, let's say you're filling out a loan. How is your employee filling out that loan? Is he doing it the most efficiently way possible, or is he doing it in a very slow way that, can slow things down and make the overall, that task go very slow, as opposed to, the approach for process mining is to use all that data that's not the employee interaction, but that data left behind by the data systems, and to analyze that. And then we get into the data. So the data used in task mining, as we said multiple times, is that real employee, that interaction, that that user interaction in the softwares, instead of just that raw data, as opposed to process mining is that raw data from the information systems across your company. And then what you have, another difference is the output. So the output for task mining, what you're going to get a lot of, is a lot of dashboards and graphs based off that user screen recordings. So you might have something like, hey, when someone goes through and does the process, let's say, Addy is working on a specific task, let's say he's taking a long time to do it, you'll be able to see that with dashboards and graphs. As opposed to process mining, you'll get data integrated dashboards and graphs, which will show your overall process and won't show you like as much of the individual activities, like the deep diving into each individual task, but will show you more as an overall whole your process. And then your results. For your results for task mining, you'll get a lot of insights on how to fix task level areas to make improvements. So individual tasks, like let's say ordering food or preparing food, you'll see your results will show a lot of that. But in process mining, you'll see more on how to fix the overall process, such as the hunger detected to the hunger satisfied, process. So those are the main differences between process mining and task mining. Now we get into how they complement each other. Could you change the slide, Addy? Okay. So process mining and task mining work very well together. First, they analyze processes at both the data and employee interaction level to give deep dive insights in your overall process. So, you'll have from one side, from the process mining side, you'll get insights, that data, that raw data side, and you'll see all the information about your process start to finish. But then with your task mining, you'll be able to deep dive into each one of those tasks and see where you can improve them further. So both of them really work well together to really get an overall understanding of your process. And then you'll have analysis and insights can be extracted on overall process, and each step can be analyzed further. That was similar to what I was just saying, how task mining is improving each individual step, and then process mining is improving the overall process. And another thing about process mining and task mining is they can be done together, like I just explained, or they can be separate. Just because you process mine does not mean you need to task mine. And just because you task mine does not mean you need to process mine. But if you really want to get a good understanding of your overall process and how to make serious improvements, you'll do both. And then the last thing they have is they're both very effective tools to see where and how RPA automations can be done efficiently within business. So with process mining, you can, see on your overall process, you can discover, create new process models on the overall process, and then you can use those to start your RPA automations. Or with task mining, you could take one task and you could automate that task for, that one step, that task can be automated. So they both work very well to start your RPA journeys, or if your processes have already been automated, they can help to improve them and make them run better in the future and help increase your automation, maybe it increases your efficiency or increases, how many transactions your bots can do and things like that. So they're both very effective for RPA as well. So now I'm going to pass it off to my friend Robert, who will talk about some of the future outlook and business side of task and process mining.
Sure. Thanks, Justin. Thank you, Adi, for the explanations. Definitely helpful. So, to kind of sum up a little bit about what they said, process mining works on the more macro level of the business, where you're trying to see how your processes work at an organizational level and how they interact with one another, where inefficiencies may lie, and where you're able to apply some type of change management for your and for trying to get solution value. Now, with task mining, it is on the more micro level. So they do work hand in hand. They're not mutually exclusive. They're actually meant to be to work together, one on the organizational level and one on the task level. So what can it really do for your business? And one of the main things that I look for when I'm seeing a successful implementation of both process and task mining is that they have a clear methodology in place. So there's definitely different methodologies that you can follow, but the ones that we have created here at Accelirate is something that we really try to make sure we instill on our clients, because without having a proper governance or proper COE in place for this initiative, it'll be very hard for you to realize the value that you probably are looking for. So why should my business implement these? Well, from a process mining perspective, I just think from an organizational insight alone, the value pretty much pays for itself, to be honest, because your business is ever changing. And one of the reasons why RPA became so popular so fast is that it was able to help businesses adapt to change with short-term and quick fixes. Whereas process mining, what it is doing is not only is it able to help better identify where inefficiencies may lie, but you're also able to use it for benchmarking purposes. So when you do enact a solution, when you do implement a change, how are you going to be able to tell whether or not your solution was effective? Utilizing process mining is something that is a very, very large use case from a change management and a tracking perspective, where you're able to really look and see over the past couple of XYZ timeframe, whatever you would like, you're able to customize what it is that you want to see. But when you have that information readily available, you're able to see what benefit is my initiative really bringing back to the business. One of the main concerns that a couple of years ago, when it came to RPA, was that some people weren't really seeing the value in RPA from just a pure cost savings perspective. Now, the reasoning why for that is because there wasn't many clear benchmarks in place, and if you're only taking it at face value of what the business says, yes, it takes me 2 minutes to do this task, then that's all the ROI that you're going to be able to have if you're taking it at that simplistic of a time frame. So what this process mining allows you to do is to employ a more sophisticated approach and something that's a lot easier for you to benchmark in the future. And that kind of goes in nicely with the next question. So where are process and task mining heading in the future from our perspective? So it's kind of a deep question. There's definitely a lot of room for growth, and I believe that both of these areas will see the type of growth that we saw with RPA a few years ago. Again, I think where they're really at now is that businesses are trying to understand, well, what is the value that I'm actually going to get out of it? Because if you're comparing it to RPA, where you're automating a task, that is, that's where your ROI is coming from, is the time savings or whatever other metrics you're using. With process and task mining, it's more from an insight perspective. So you have to make sure that that you're really putting whatever is the change that you enact, and then whatever you are monitoring, that those two things go hand in hand, so you're able to actually effectively track that. And I believe in the future, you're going to see more and more of these capabilities both pop up, so new companies, but also new integrations as well. UiPath now has their own process miner and task miner that they have over the past year acquired through various companies, and you're going to see that trend happen a lot more, I believe, across some of the larger RPA providers. So what should I expect when implementing it? the first thing I would say is that you need to understand what it is you are trying to solve. And I would say the reason solve is because there needs to be a problem. So if you're just putting in process mining just for, you know, the heck of it, it's going to be hard for you to say, well, is this really giving me value or not? You need to have a problem that you are trying to solve, and then be able to identify if whether that is actually the problem, utilizing process mining. And then when you enact a change, then what did that change bring about? That is how you directly tie the value back to the process mining or task mining. So what you should expect is not to just get a pure cost savings. You're not going from a pure cost savings perspective when you're utilizing either of these tools. This is more of an insight tool that it can be utilized with other technologies, i.e. RPA or many others that can then help you with those whether they be automation motivators or business drivers. So why should I start thinking about it now? This really kind of goes back again into the RPA perspective as well, where RPA was a couple of years ago versus where it is now is vastly different. And those big use cases that you hear about, where they have hundreds of bots or, you know, millions of dollars in savings, many of those COEs have been established or been around for many years. They were early adopters, and the reasoning why is that why they were able to kind of reap those benefits is because they were doing the early adoption and they were able to kind of instill the methodology from the beginning. They were able to reap those long-term benefits. So why you should start thinking about it now is I do believe that it'll become more of a standard from an optimization perspective, business optimization perspective, is utilizing these types of tools. And the faster you are to adoption and in standardizing a methodology that works for your organization and in your area, the better. So that was my little wrap up of this slide and what was said about prior. We have about 7 minutes left. I just want to thank Justin and Adi for again preparing this presentation and helping out with leading this initiative. But just want to open the floor to anybody that has any questions.
All right, cool. There's a couple questions. The first one, would the same team be able to do both process mining and task mining?
So, and Justin could add more if he wants, but process mining will take significantly more brain power than task mining. And the reason why I'm saying brain power is that you need dedicated resources really for process mining. Now, they can do task mining as well. But somebody that does task mining may not exactly be a fit for process mining because it is a very data-driven tool. They need some very good experience with in terms of data manipulation, how databases are structured and work. And Justin, if you want to add a little bit more to that, I'm sure you can. But the point is, I'm trying to say is basically that process mining will require more from a knowledge perspective than task mining.
Yeah, I agree with Robert. I would say more of when you come to process mining, exactly. A process miner could task mine, but not necessarily a task miner could process mine. Because process mining takes up, well, there's two main roles when you're process mining. You'll have a process developer, which will have more of a software and data engineering background to him. And then you'll have a process analyst, which will have more of a business and also a data background as well. And the process analyst will be giving you your insights in your process, and your process developer will be setting up all the dashboards, gathering all the data, combining it, and creating those insights for you to see. So I would say definitely, you want more data backgrounds when it comes to process mining and even task mining. You want more of a someone with a data background to work with it, but definitely, definitely you'll need a little more brain power, as Robert said, for process mining.
Okay. Cool. There's another question. What roles would you need to start doing task mining?
So for task mining as a whole, realistically, you would only need one analyst, I guess you could say. Adi can add more to that if you would like, but the actual effort for task mining is very different than that for process mining, because you're installing a recorder essentially on SMEs, on subject matter experts and workstations, and then recording those interactions, and then you're contextualizing that output, right? So that is something that one person can do. Now, depending on the size of the area you were looking at, you may need more resources, but it's not something like process mining where you need dedicated XYZ role. Task mining is something where you would really only need one dedicated analyst, and that is able to both conduct the recording, so installing them on the workstations, but also helping in contextualizing the output.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you, RJ. I think the size of the team would grow based on how many SMEs tasks you would want to mine. So that's the only place where I would see the size grow. But as far as the analyst is concerned, you wouldn't need a lot. Yeah.
All right, cool. There's looks like one more question. Who are the major companies that currently use task mining?
So, I mean, in terms of task mining as a capability itself, it's rather new. So you have certain companies like Cryon that have been in it for the past couple of years, and you can go on their website and see some of their use cases. But it's very big in BFSI and the telecom industry. Obviously, just because of the amount of people working in said industry and the type of tasks that they were doing, they kind of mesh well with automation. I'm sure I'm not saying anything that is revolutionary there, but in terms of exact customer names, I wouldn't be able to give you that off the top of my head just because of the different providers that there are. But if I had to say in terms of an industry focus on where there would be the largest benefit as of right now in terms of current capability, it would be the BFSI or telecom industries.
All right, perfect. That looks like the last question.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much for joining. Really appreciate it. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out. And thank you very much. Hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.